In 1993, a routine burglary in a quiet German town didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. The police arrived at the scene, expecting to find the usual evidence, a few fingerprints, maybe some witnesses, and clues that would help them solve the case. But what they found instead was something that would lead to one of Europe's most baffling criminal mysteries. As the police processed the crime scene, they discovered DNA left behind. It belonged to a woman, and at first they thought it was just a simple piece of the puzzle. The DNA was entered into their database, and investigators assumed that it was only a matter of time before they'd identify the suspect. Days passed and then weeks, and there was no match for the woman's DNA. It was unusual, but not unheard of. After all, not every criminal has a record. Then in the months that followed, more crimes started to occur. Another break-in here, a car theft there, and in each case, police were once again met with a familiar, unsettling discovery: the same female DNA. This time they couldn't ignore the connection. They were looking at a criminal who seemed to be everywhere, but left no other trace. No one had seen her. No other clues pointed to her identity, and the only thing investigators could rely on was this invisible mark she left behind at every scene. By 1995, this woman's DNA had been found at more than 5 different crime scenes across Germany. The crimes weren't particularly connected, different cities, different types of incidents, and yet the same DNA kept showing up. It was becoming clear that this was no ordinary case, but no one could have predicted just how strange things were about to get. The case grew colder as the years passed, but the DNA continued to pop up in unexpected places. By 1997, it had been found at more than a dozen crime scenes, and the crimes themselves began to take on a more serious tone. What started as petty thefts and break-ins had escalated. Now the woman's DNA was being linked to armed robberies, car thefts, and even more violent encounters. The police, now working across different regions, were baffled. They had a DNA profile, a piece of evidence that should have led to an arrest, but they had no face to attach to it. No witnesses had ever reported seeing this woman at the scenes. Her presence was, in every way, ghostly. There, but never seen. Investigators began to refer to this mysterious woman as the Phantom. But while the nickname gave her a sense of intrigue, it also reflected the growing frustration of law enforcement. How could one person be involved in so many crimes and yet remain completely invisible? By 2001, the Phantom's DNA had been found in over 20 crime scenes, not just in Germany, but also in Austria and France. It seemed as though this mysterious figure was everywhere, spreading her crimes across borders, leaving law enforcement agencies in multiple countries on high alert. They formed special task forces, shared information, and tried to come up with a theory, any theory, that could explain how this woman could evade capture for so long. Despite all their efforts, there was no breakthrough. The Phantom remained just that, a phantom, a woman whose DNA was found at every crime scene, but who never left any other trace of her existence. As the crimes continued, so did the mystery. By 2007, the investigation had reached a fever pitch. The Phantom had been linked to more than 30 crimes, and the public was beginning to take notice. The media picked up on the story, and headlines began to spread across Europe about the mysterious woman who was behind such a wide range of crimes. Law enforcement agencies, feeling the pressure, increased their efforts to catch her. Then, on April 25, 2007, the case took a dark and tragic turn. In the small town of Heilbronn, 2 police officers were ambushed while sitting in their patrol car. One of them, a young officer named Michele Kiesewetter, was shot and killed. Her partner was seriously injured but survived the attack. The crime shocked the nation, and when investigators arrived at the scene, they made a chilling discovery. The Phantom's DNA was there once again. This was no longer just about thefts or robberies. The Phantom, it seemed, was now linked to the murder of a police officer. The stakes had never been higher. Forensic teams worked around the clock, reanalyzing old crime scenes, scouring every inch of evidence they had collected over the years. The international manhunt intensified, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find any other leads. The Phantom's DNA was the only clue they had, and it had never led them anywhere. The case was now infamous, and the Phantom of Heilbronn had become a legend in her own right. Everyone wanted to know who she was and how she could have evaded capture for so long. But the more they looked, the less they found. And then, in 2009, came the twist that no one saw coming. 16 years after the first crime scene where her DNA had been found, forensic scientists made a discovery that would turn the entire case on its head. While reviewing procedures, they uncovered a horrifying mistake. The DNA that had been linked to over 40 different crime scenes across Europe didn't belong to a master criminal at all. It belonged to a woman who worked in a factory. The cotton swabs that had been used by police to collect DNA evidence from crime scenes were contaminated. The swabs, manufactured in a sterile facility, had somehow been exposed to the DNA of a female worker who handled them during the production process. Every time police used these swabs to gather evidence, they were unintentionally adding her DNA to the crime scenes. Even though the truth had finally been revealed, the story of the Phantom of Heilbronn continued to resonate long after the case was closed.